Welcome back, Irish fans, to Breaking Down Bray's Boys podcast. Mike Bray and staff has done it again in the class of 2022. Ven-Allen Lubin, top 100 player in the class of 22, is Irish, third member of Notre Dame's class of 2022, and one of the better players Notre Dame's landed in the past few years. Probably going to end up being the second highest rated since 2018. So big gift for Notre Dame in all aspects. Going to start with his recruitment. Notre Dame beat out Clemson, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, three schools that are pretty southern, two ACC schools, actually three ACC schools. I don't know what I was thinking. But the thought originally was that Ven Lubin would stay down south. Pretty much every other school in his top seven was down south, and Notre Dame somehow made enough of a play to land him. The first time his offer was public was August 30th. He announced that top seven that I was talking about. Offer wasn't previously announced, but I confirmed he was offered before then. Don't know how far in advance, though, but Notre Dame did see him at least once this summer, I'm guessing more. And then they also saw him the first day of the evaluation period where you could only go to see guys at their school. First day you could do that. Only guys they saw that day were J.J. Starling and then Ven-Allen Lubin a few hours later. And then Mike Bray flew back that night to see Dom Campbell. So all three Notre Dame's commits they saw that day. Only one of them was committed at the time. So that's a big day to look back on for Notre Dame that ended up being their 2022 class. So Ven Lubin also visited Notre Dame a few weeks later. I'm sure things were shifted towards Notre Dame's favor after that visit. Seemed like things went well, and I guess they did because Ven-Allen Lubin is now Irish. Going into his game, the way I would describe Ven-Allen Lubin's game is versatility personified. I think he moves well enough to guard guards, is athletic enough and tall enough to guard forwards. Probably isn't going to guard centers, but against some teams he can. Can play on the perimeter. Facing up out of the post is probably what he does best on offense, but can play out of the perimeter, can work in the pick and roll as the screener, and can work on mismatches in the post. I think he still has a little bit of ways to go as a straight-up post-up guy and a stretch big. I like his shot. I think his release is good enough to get by. It's a low 30% shooter. I don't necessarily know that he's going to be anywhere near Nate Laszewski as a stretch big, but I think Dom Campbell might even be a better shooter than him. But Ven-Allen Lubin, I think, is going to be a guy who Notre Dame can use pretty much anywhere. Going to go more into the offensive side of his game, 6'7". I don't really buy that. He has a 6'9" wingspan, supposedly. I don't know if I buy that either. I think this guy he at least plays bigger than 6'7". It seems like he's like a 6'10", 6'11" guy when you watch him play, but he's not. I don't think he necessarily has guard skills like JR does, but he can still take guys bounce, get to the rim, and doesn't have any trouble finishing around the rim just because of his athleticism. Seems to have pretty good touch too. I think he's going to be kind of a face-up guy, kind of like a Jaden Gardner or Trace Jackson Davis. Am I thinking he's going to be Trace Jackson Davis, All-American caliber player? No, but that's mostly what his offensive game is going to look like, in my opinion. I'd like to see him shoot a little bit better as the years go on, just because right now, just as a face-up big, I don't know that he necessarily fits into what Notre Dame wants to do as a 6'7" guy. Kind of like Elijah Taylor, I think he needs to develop more of an outside game and be able to work almost exclusively on the perimeter at times, just so he can fit into what Notre Dame wants to run offensively. Maybe by the time he's here, then he won't have to worry about that because Notre Dame's going to run a different offense with a different coach. But at least for his freshman year, I'm assuming Bray is going to be the coach, and they're going to run a 4-out, 1-in. So he's probably going to have to be one of those four who's on the perimeter working, and he'll probably be screening for guys, picking and popping. And I guess he can get to the basket still, but he's going to have to be able to stretch the floor because he probably can't consistently play the 5 at 6'7". Just needs to be a floor spacer. But for now, I think he's a guy who runs the floor really well offensively and defensively. He can switch on to guys. He can stay with guys, block shots, just do pretty much everything. Just a unbelievable athlete. Notre Dame has two really good athletes in this class with J.J. Starling and Ven-Allen Lubin. Um, but I do like his face-up game. I think that can be really valuable for Notre Dame, especially if he can add other components to his offensive game more consistently. I think he's a fine shooter. I just don't think he's going to be a 40% shooter anytime soon from beyond the arc. So if you can get closer to that, he's going to be really dangerous offensively and somebody that could be an NBA player one day. I think before he gets to Notre Dame, he's just going to have to do that and put on a little bit of weight so he can guard bigger guys. Every high school player essentially has to do that, though. So I'm not too worried about that. Notre Dame is a good strength program that can get him right, but he's just a really nice piece defensively who can play all over. Guy who can get to the rim on offense and just create for himself better than a lot of 6'7" guys, even if he doesn't have J.R. Knesny type guard skills. I think he has areas that he is better than J.R. in, other than just creating his own looks around the rim. He's really dangerous. If you watch a highlight reel of him or even a full game, you're going to see a lot of dunks and a lot of really impressive ones, especially this summer. You don't see too many crazy dunks in his high school games from last year, but this summer, like, there was one putback dunk that I was like, there's no way this guy's 6'7". Like, he got way up above the rim and threw it down. And basically the only full AAU game I could find of him. This guy is unbelievable athlete and somebody that Notre Dame can use in a multitude of ways. Going into how he fits in the class, I think we all know J.J. Starling's still the centerpiece of this class. Ven Lubin is a really high ceiling complementary player, though, especially Notre Dame needed a forward pretty badly in this class to go along with their guards. And I think he can be a 4/5 guy. But his freshman year, Notre Dame could potentially bring back Starling, Blake, Cormac, Trey, Dane. And then if you consider J.R. Knesny a guard, then the two walk-on guards, probably Carmody could come back. So Notre Dame's going to be loaded at guard. But in terms of forwards, all they really have is J.R., Tony, Matt Zona, Elijah Taylor. I'm guessing I consider J.R. more of a forward at Notre Dame. But those are the guys who he's going to be competing with. I think he could definitely play some minutes as a freshman, especially just because of how much of a defensive piece he is, how much he can do for you on that end. I think they just needed a forward really badly on that roster, and getting a top 100 guy definitely doesn't hurt. This is an unbelievable class for Notre Dame. I think this is one of those classes that we're going to look back on like the 2018 class. I know that hasn't worked out how a lot of people would have liked it to this point, but that class was really good recruiting rankings-wise, and this class might be even better. They're not going to be ranked as high just because they don't have as many players, but in terms of stars per player, even if you take out Chris Doherty, I think this class is probably higher with JJ, Dom, and Ven-Allen Lubin. Those are all guys, depending on where you look, who are top 100 players. And I think all of them probably will be towards the end of high school. Maybe Dom won't be, and Ven Lubin, I'm guessing, will be. But we'll see how guys develop and stuff. But I'm guessing they're going to have at least two top 100 guys in this class, and Dom is probably going to be borderline depending on where you look. So that is a really good class. And something that if you asked me in July what their class would look like, I would have been shocked if you said they got three top 100 recruits. So, yeah, I'm really happy with how Notre Dame's finished this class off. Staff did a really good job just making guys know that their priorities and actually executing and getting them. So, great job by the staff. Wanted to talk about how he complements Dom a little more as to how he fits in the class. You kind of look at the fit as odd because Dom is, 6'8", 6'9", and then Ven Lubin's 6'7", which I will buy that when Notre Dame posts his height on their site. I'm going to give it a few years before I commit to saying he's actually 6'7". So, but I think Dom is more of an inside-out guy who's going to work back to the basket. Would probably fit better as the one in the 4-out, 1-in. And then Ven Lubin, I think, is going to fit a little bit better on the perimeter, taking guys off the bounce, getting to the rim. I don't know that he really has the back to the basket ability that Dom has, but I think they can both play on the floor at the same time and complement each other somewhat well. I think Notre Dame probably views them the same way uh, that I do in terms of they can kind of complement each other on the floor, especially the way Ven Lubin defends and how Notre Dame can use him. I think is really valuable. They can kind of hide Dom, and Ven Lubin is just going to be a playmaker on that end. So just love his fit in this class, three-man class, but it's one of Notre Dame's best ones in years, maybe even better than 2018. I wanted to go into a little bit of a player comp. There's not really many guys that I think are similar to him that Notre Dame's got. I don't think there's many in college basketball that are exactly like Ven-Allen Lubin. I kind of like the Jawan Durham comparison, but he's a bit shorter than Jawan Durham, has better ball skills, better shooter, moves better, and I think is slightly more athletic. Durham's a better shot blocker, but not as versatile of a defender. And Durham's a better back to the basket guy. I don't love that comparison just because they play kind of different positions, but I think Ven Lubin's kind of a shorter Jawan Durham with more athleticism, better ball skills, and whatever else I mentioned. I don't love any comparison for him. Jawan Durham makes a little bit of sense to me, but this is a guy that Notre Dame hasn't had many guys like in the past. And yeah, I guess Trace Jackson Davis would maybe be a little more valid of a comparison just play style wise, not necessarily how good of a player he's going to be. Same with Durham. I think he could probably be a better player than Durham when it's all said and done. Probably will be. But it's really hard to find a play style thing for him. Overall, I want to get into now because the player comp is a little shaky just in general. He's just such a unique athlete, such a unique player in pretty much every aspect. But overall, I think he's the type of guy that Notre Dame doesn't get often. Like I said, there's not many players like him at all. From a place Notre Dame doesn't get a whole lot of players from in Florida. I think that whole thing about Notre Dame doesn't get guys from this place or whatever, I don't think that's really – I think that's more of just something to talk about rather than like an actual factor in recruitments. Like a guy's going to go where he wants to go, even if you have connections there. But I do think it's interesting that Notre Dame did get him from Florida, considering all the Southern schools that were going after him. I think it's more of a factor in football than in basketball for Notre Dame, just because if they get a guy from the South in football, it means like Georgia and Alabama have offered him and we're actively recruiting him. There's nobody really like that in basketball down South. But getting a guy out of the South, I think, is a big testament to the staff and how they can recruit in this new staff. This new staff has really done a nice job getting the guys that they can land, or getting the guys that they've made priorities, and big gift for Notre Dame. They can use him in so many ways. It's going to be so exciting to see what Notre Dame does with him when he gets on campus. I have a hard time kind of seeing him not playing as a freshman just because he can do so much for you. Even if he hasn't put on enough weight, even if he hasn't developed enough offensively, you can find a way to use him. So that's just something I really am excited to see with him. But ending it off, Ven-Allen Lubin just caps off an unbelievable recruiting class that if you told me 2 months ago, 3 months ago, well, I guess it's more than that now, but if you told me in the summer that they would land a class like this, I would be shocked. I wouldn't have thought that would be the case. I guess J.J. Starling was thought of as a Duke lean at that point, and things shifted when he took a few visits. But, wow, that's a big class for Notre Dame. This program seems to be turning around, and 2022 is going to be a really, really fun year. Just having all the new guys, all the young guys, but also old guys with Cormac, Trey. Hopefully Robbie can play. I really want to see him still succeed. Dane Goodwin, I don't know how I forgot about him. And then Zona and Taylor will be juniors. Blake will probably have a ton of experience under his belt by then. JR will have a bit. So Notre Dame is going to be deep experience next year, and I just can't wait to see what that team looks like. they have so many pieces they can just move around and stuff, just to make a great team. And then probably going to add another big in the portal too, just because they don't really have a true center. So that would be what I look for as Notre Dame's next recruiting move. I don't think it's going to be a 2022 guy. 23 guys are not going to commit for a while. I think Notre Dame's probably done in this class. They're going to shift their focus to guys like Xavier Booker and then a few other guards like Aiden Holloway. 2023, it's really early in those guys' timeline though, but Notre Dame can now shift their focus after they're essentially done in 2023, or 2022. So big land for Notre Dame overall. Going to be really fun to cover this class in their senior year of high school and see how they develop. And yeah, that's all I got. Thank you guys for watching. Big get for Notre Dame, like I said, and a lot to be excited about for this program in the next few years. Season coming up soon. We'll have a game preview out in a few days for Cal State Northridge versus Notre Dame, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't for more Notre Dame basketball content. See you guys later. Peace.